Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live recording of the Rockstar Manifestors podcast. It is recorded live here on Facebook Live every week, and then it becomes a podcast episode on pretty much all of the podcast platforms as well as on my YouTube podcast playlist. So, welcome on in to those of you who are returning as well as those who are new to Blue Moon Manifestations land. I'm excited to have both of you, both sets of you here. So, my name is Patty Diaz. I specialize in helping you believe in your dreams and dream bigger and bigger as you show up as that rock star, living the life of your dreams, living your desires, so that your dreams and wishes and desires have no choice but to manifest for you. So, I am bringing you a topic today about taking action, but it might seem a little bit counterintuitive, or it might seem a little bit like, like it doesn't quite connect because it is, the topic is saying no. It's a manifestation hack. I guess I should start off with that. Saying no to these three things might be the action to take. And so I will get into that and explain what I mean about that. So if you are listening to this or watching this live on Facebook, or if you're listening to it on the podcast, within the time frame that I'm recording this. So I'm recording this on March 1st, 2023, and we are now, excuse me, in the first quarter moon phase. And that is the phase of the lunar cycle where it's time to start taking action. So that's where I have that connection to saying no being the way to take action. And if you are new to working with the lunar cycle or new to kind of the things I talk about here at Blue Moon Manifestations, I talk and teach and coach on how to work with the lunar cycle on many different levels. And so you may be familiar with the lunar cycle that we have, every month, where it goes new moon to full moon back to new moon, but you can also work with this pattern over the course of an entire year. So you can look at the year, 12 months, as one huge lunar cycle, and the quarter phases of the moon break down according or that match up with the seasons of the year. So right now we are close to the end of the winter season here in the northern hemisphere, which is the intention setting season or quarter of the year. And we are going to be moving into the spring season, which is the first quarter moon season of the year. And we so happen to be in the first quarter phase of the actual lunar cycle of the Pisces new moon cycle right now. So it's very close together. And like I said, this is the action taking phase. And if you want to learn more about how to work with the lunar cycle throughout the course of the year, I am teaching a series of workshops over the course of the year exactly about that. So if you're not yet on my email list, I recommend that you get on that, and I will put the links to that in the comments or descriptions or wherever you happen to be accessing this. So, but let's get into the things to say no to as the action step. And I'm going to share an actual example in my life to exemplify what I mean by that. But let me tell you the three things first. And I very often talk about three things, like three sets or three actions or three reasons, because I like the number three. And it's a good starting point for people. It gives you three choices or three things to look at, three ways to look at things. So three is a one of my go-tos. Three options, if you will. And I'm trying to pull up my notes as I'm talking online here. Okay. So the first of the three things is to, and you know what? I'm going to back up just a little bit. I've told you that saying no might be the action to take. And the reason I'm saying that is because of the example I will show you. I came to realize that saying no, even or maybe especially when it feels scary and maybe a little uncertain, and then sticking to that no, holding your ground, staying in that confidence or staying in that no and sticking with it is the action to take. And the first one that I'm going to share with you is saying no to things that you are no longer a match for, or things that don't align with your goals or desires. And what do I mean by that? Things that you are no longer a match for. Those are things that you might just be doing out of habit. You might be doing them out of from the thinking that, oh, it's the way that it's always been, or this is the only way that I know how, but it really doesn't gain you any ground. It really doesn't show any results. It is, let's see, something along the lines of, let's see, some of these are going to overlap as I'm thinking this in my head. So, things that are no longer a match. If you are trying to, let's see, if you are trying to get healthy, or if you're trying to be more active, things that don't match that might be staying on the couch and playing video games the same amount of time as you had before. Or it might be um, staying on the computer, even if it's for positive things, right? Like staying on the computer if you work a lot and sitting at your desk the majority of the day. Those types of actions or activities do not match up with becoming healthier or getting healthy or whatever, that is. So what are some things that you could do by saying no to playing video games, couch or whatever it is? What can you say no to yes to instead? Listen to some music as you walk around the block in the house playing video games. Because it's not about giving it up completely, it's about making the choices that align and move you into alignment with the desires and the goals that you're working towards. Because to be honest, and I know we all know this, but oftentimes we need to hear it multiple times. If the things that you are currently doing or have been doing in the past, or just because it's the way you've always done things, if those things lined up with your desires and goals, you would have them, or you would be making progress towards them at the very least and seeing some results. So, in order to get different results, you need to do things differently. This is not new information, but we often need that reminder. And I know I was going to say I was very stubborn, but I am. I still am very stubborn. So I have been very stubborn about this in the past, and I know I needed to hear it many times. And sometimes I still need the reminder, and I need either to someone else to point it out for me, or if I catch myself, coach myself through the process. Saying no to things that don't line up with your desires. And I'm not going to go into the full example, but just to give you a different perspective, I used to be in my day job, my muggle job, if you will. I did field work for a long time, and once things changed in the world with the staying at home and all that, I transitioned to working completely from home and not having field work. And so when I decided that that's how I wanted, that felt good, that was the direction I wanted to keep going. The thing that no longer aligned with my desire was going back to doing field work. And so see how it's just realizing the things that you've been doing or the things that you are doing that just don't match up with your desires. So I'll get back into the details of my example in a little bit. So, number one is saying no to things that are no longer a match for or that don't align with your desires. And this can come from you too. What are you no longer a match for? Are you no longer a match for procrastination? Are you no longer a match for indecision? Are you no longer a match for letting other people dictate your time? So this can apply. Oftentimes, that's a better place to start. What are you no longer energetically a match for that just are not the things that you want anymore? It doesn't mean they were bad before. It simply means you don't currently want them any longer, or you just don't want to carry them forward. So, number two, the second thing to say no to things that don't feel good, right? And this might be, you might think, but wait, what? Especially after you hear me talk about some of the other stuff that I will share with you today. So, things that don't feel good, again, I recommend starting energetically. Does it feel good to instigate arguments, with a family member or a friend or a loved one? Because you're feeling bad about yourself or you're feeling bad about your decisions. Does it feel energetically good to eat the junk food instead of the healthy food? It might taste good, but it doesn't feel good in your body. The results don't match up, right, with feeling good. And how is a good way to phrase this? Exercise, since I'm sticking with that theme, exercise might not feel good in the moment. If it's hard or when your muscles are shaking, from doing something that it's like feeling hard, that might not feel good. But the result leaves you feeling good. The result of exercise leaves you feeling good, right? You feel more energized, you feel accomplished, you feel less stressed. So that is, again, the perspective that I'm looking at. Things that don't feel good. Do now say yes to things that do feel good, even if the feel good comes as the result of the action that you take, like the exercise, because there are always two sides to every coin, right? There's duality. So if something is not feeling good, what is the thing that does feel good? And if you're looking at how do I wrap my head around this, it's look at the end result. Look at the result that you get from the exercise. Look at the result that you get from the procrastination. Look at the result that you get from not keeping your word. And so, like I said at the beginning, some of these may overlap and intermingle, but it's also three different perspectives to maybe help you wrap your mind around this or see things a little bit differently or have that, oh, now that makes sense, or it's starting to make sense by hearing it this way instead of that way, or in addition to the other way. So, things that don't feel good, beating yourself up, being judgmental, for not taking the actions. That doesn't feel good. And it doesn't lead to beneficial results, beating yourself up and being judgmental to yourself. It doesn't feel good to um, to wallow in shame or guilt for not taking action or for something that you said to someone. What will feel good is maybe apologizing for something that you said. It might not feel good or comfortable in the moment, but doesn't the end result feel good? Even if the person doesn't immediately accept the apology, you feel good about getting it off your chest, about saying the apology. So if you're having a hard time distinguishing, well, exercise doesn't feel good or the actual thing may not feel good, look just a little bit beyond that to the result, the end result of the thing that you're trying to decide if it feels good or not. And the third thing to say no to is say no to things that bring you immediate gratification versus the long term gratification. A third example of the exact same thing. And the way to look at this is look at the future you. Will the future you thank this present you for doing the action or taking the action? So it feels really good in the moment, maybe to scroll and procrastinate by looking on social media and by wasting time or looking at fun videos. But will future you at 5 o'clock in the evening, when you should be done or when you could be done with work and you're still working, because of the time that you spent scrolling or responding to comments or anything like that, does that future you thank the previous version of you? And that's an example I'm sharing from my very own experience. I would spend a lot of time scrolling when I didn't want to be doing something. And I learned methods to counteract that. I learned methods of working that help me get through those hard things that I don't necessarily feel like doing. But I can tell you also from experience, it feels much better to be able to log off my computer, at 5 or maybe even 6 o'clock, if that's the case, instead of still having work to do after dinner or having work to do in the, later on at night. Um, After doing stuff with my family or whatever the case is, still having that hanging over my head because I did not use my time beneficially earlier in the day. The 5 o'clock in the evening version of me is not thanking, the 12 o'clock version of me that that took the time to scroll. So, will the future you, however far in the future that is, an hour in the future, a minute in the future, uh, a few hours, like at the end of the day, a month in the future, will that version of you thank the current version of you for the action that you're taking and that immediate gratification? And yes, it tastes really good to eat the sweets and eat, beyond moderation, because moderation is good. We do have, enjoy the sweets, enjoy the things that taste good, but in moderation. So, not practicing moderation and maybe overindulging. Does the future you an hour from now or later on in the evening feel good and want to thank the earlier version of you or not? And when it comes to doing exercise, since I've used that example in all three, um, the present version of you that is not enjoying, the sore muscles or the shaky muscles or doesn't enjoy the yoga pose and how it feels, but will the future version of you that benefits from the cumulative work in increased flexibility, increased and better health, increased mobility, strength, strength in your core and in your muscles and in your limbs, does that future version of you thank the current version of you for going through that? Absolutely. So those are three different ways of basically looking at the actions and the things to say no to. Say no to the things that are no longer a match, that you are no longer a match for energetically, and that don't align with your desires and goals. Say no to the things that don't feel good energetically. Again, if someone is draining your energy and you don't like being around them, do something else. Don't spend as much time with them. Spend time with someone else. So things that don't feel good. And three, say no to the things that bring you immediate gratification that the future you will not be thanking you for if you continue to do them or when you're doing them. Those are things to keep in mind. And these things that you say no to may have consequences, or I should say, they will have consequences. Some may feel scary or unpleasant or bad, and some are really positive consequences. And I touched a little bit on the positive consequences, like improved health, better stamina, having your work done at a decent time, being able to enjoy your work, by finding a new job if the one that you have really is sucking the life out of you. So the consequences, there are consequences for every action. It's simply determining if they're desirable consequences or undesirable consequences, because they're all giving you information. They all are a result of actions and thoughts and choices that you make that affect you in some way in the future. So, those are my three ways and the three things I'm sorry to say no to. And the story that I'm going to leave you with is what I started telling you at the beginning, where when the pandemic shutdown started, I transitioned from working sometimes out in the field or a combination of out in the field and working from home to working exclusively from home, not having to go out in the field, doing everything virtually, like through Zoom or telephone calls or things like that, that I would do in person previously. And I decided that this is how I wanted to continue. Being out in the field is a thing that did not line up with my desires any longer. So saying no when the opportunity or when conversations or questions were asked if I was able to go out or if I wanted to, and if that was something I was considering. And I said no. My initial reaction, because what my previous way of doing things was to say, oh, well, okay, I guess maybe I have to, or I should, or I could, but it really takes sticking to your guns, asking yourself. I asked myself, is going back out in the field an action or something that aligns with my desires and that moves me closer to the thing that I want? And so the answer to that was no. So saying no to going back out in the field was the thing I had to say no to. And it felt uncertain. It felt uneasy because it's something I had not previously done. It was a new way of doing things. And so I, took that moment to really ask myself and clear no. And when by doing that, I realized that no, going back out in the field does not align with moving me in a direction that I want. So to get that aspect of it, or it's done a different way, and we help each other out. I help people who are out in the field with some things, and they help me out by doing that. So it really works. It's a symbiotic relationship, and it simply started by getting clear on what I wanted and getting clear on whether the action of going back out in the field lined up with what I wanted, and saying no, even though it was uncomfortable. It felt a little uncertain and went against what I had historically done in the past. And that's the transformation process of practicing being that future you who attracts the opportunities. Because by saying no, and sticking to my guns, the universe then said yes to me and presented me with other opportunities that I did not have time for or capacity for when I was working out in the field. And the universe said, yes, here's this opportunity. Here's a way, to counterbalance that. Here is an opportunity you've been waiting for. And now that you've stuck to your guns, I see that you're serious. So here you go. So by saying no, that can be the action that leads to the universe saying yes to you. So hopefully that resonates. And if you know anyone that would benefit from this information or enjoy this type of information, I invite you to pass this information on, pass it on, share it, and spread the word and the goodness. So, like I said at the beginning, there are workshops happening throughout the year that will help you learn how to work with the lunar cycle over the course of a year. And getting on my email list is the surefire way to get that information because I send it all to everyone on my email list. And the link to get on the email list will be wherever you're watching this, either in the description or the comments. And by using that link, you will also get the my free manifesting songs playlist that I have created, which has songs that I feel are designed to help you feel like anything is possible, which contributes to believing in your dreams, in yourself, and in your desires. So that is it. I would love to hear your feedback and know what it is that you are saying no to, what you will say no to, and also if there's topics that you would like me to discuss or cover, please let me know what they are, and I will see what I can do about that. So thank you guys. Have a great one, and I will see you next time.